didn't do? He didn't beat me around every corner about every single thing. Because I'm telling you now, the Lord Jesus is not like that. People testify that they don't know him when they do those things, not that they know him. They testify that they don't know the Son. Jesus is nothing like that. There's a wonderful parable by one of my favorite prophets. I won't say his name. And in this parable, he is writing his encounter with the Lord Jesus. And the Lord Jesus is telling him this parable about how he is. And it's called the parable of the jeweler. There was a young man who was a grass cutter, and he worked within the jungles. And one day, he found a precious stone, what he believed to be a valuable precious stone. And when he found this precious stone, he then took it to the jeweler. And when the jeweler saw it, seeing as though he knew it had no value, rather than crush his hopes, which will cause him to despise the jeweler, and also cause him to have his hopes brought to dust, he then employs the jeweler. He then employs the young man. The jeweler then employs the young man and says, let me bring him alongside and devise a way and the means and schemes for him to see his own error. Then, as the young man works alongside the jeweler, he learns his ways. He learns the function of value. As he begins to learn that, years later, he brings the young man aside again. Let us weigh your stone so we may know its value. And when the young man goes to retrieve his stone, he then unpacks it, seeing as though he thought it was valuable, he kept it boxed away. When he unpacks it, he realizes what he holds has no value. When he realizes what he has holds no value, he falls to his knees and says, Master, I will follow you and serve you wherever you go. Seeing as though the man did not crush his hopes or bring him to dust, he devised a way for him to see his error so he could walk in truth. And that man went on to serve the jeweler forever. That's the Lord Jesus. That he would devise a way for us to know our ways and know when we're in error, yet without crushing us, our hopes to dust, and without causing us to despise him, he devises a way and the means to draw us closer to himself by putting us into his service. Jesus knows we'll get things wrong. That's the part people can't handle. That's the part people can't handle. Jesus knew I was flawed when he called me and put me into his service. Jesus knew Abraham was going to lie when he came into the land and said, oh, this is my sister. Jesus knew Jacob was going to be a deceiver and steal his brother's portion. Jesus knew Paul was going to mess up thinking he's doing something in the name of God. Because remember, Paul didn't do this in the name of Satan. Paul thought he was doing this in the name of God when he brought harm to the Christians. And Jesus did what? He devised a way and a means and a scheme to draw a man to himself and put him into his service. And when he puts him into his service, he will realize his ways and his errors. And he does not crush us without hope, yet he allows us to come to our errors so we can turn and serve him. That's the Jesus that I know. Not the Jesus that gets on TikTok, Instagram, and just wants to rail at everything. No, you hate God and you hate his prophets and you hate his people. You just don't know it.